This decade alone, we've gotten a new Alien film, an entire series, and 3 Predator films: Prey, Killer of Killers, and now Badlands. Dan Trachtenberg himself has attempted 3 different Predator movies, doing 3 completely different things, and in my opinion has single-handedly saved the Predator franchise. The first thing I thought of as the credits rolled on Badlands was how it's so interesting the way that Disney has treated the Alien and Predator franchise after the Fox acquisition versus how they've treated another property like Star Wars after they acquired Lucasfilm. We'll talk more about that later, but I do think with Predator specifically, this entire creative exploration of the different aspects of Predator can be honed into Dan Trachtenberg's vision for the franchise, but also to an extent the creative freedom that Disney has allowed Trachtenberg to have over this franchise, because at this point it is his franchise. Prey feels personal in a sense of survival. Killer of Killers feels personal in the sense of humanity coming together, and Badlands feels personal in a completely different way, in which we're using a decades-long antagonist as a protagonist and exploring humanity, vulnerability, and survival. Trachtenberg's vision feels so vivid while he's doing 3 completely different things. With Predator Badlands specifically, I would compare this most like Killers of Killers, because I feel like Prey has a little bit more of what can Predator as a franchise just be: your classic protagonist versus antagonist in a setting that I think is the most interesting of the entire franchise, but is on a story level very, very basic. But I think it's very similar to what Alien Romulus does in terms of it does follow a very similar story arc that we've seen before, but it works and it gets us back to a point where this franchise is interesting to pretty much everyone. Killer of Killers and Badlands uses the lore in such a unique and expansive way, in my opinion. It does feel like a departure from the classic survival man versus monster story, which I think works after we already had Prey. This to me all just works because this feels like such a fresh interpretation of Predator as a character. Again, we've always had man versus monster, but Badlands takes really a completely different look into the monster of Predator, literally making this creature the protagonist of the story. I think Weyland-Yutani will always be an interesting antagonist to this big tech corporation. The way it's explored in Alien Earth with just the children's synths and cloning, and I guess the ethical aspects of Weyland-Yutani versus the survival aspects of Weyland-Yutani explored in a recent project like Alien Romulus. But I think here, setting them as the villains and having this different arc and completion that the Predator needs to have, it all works together, not in a way that makes you necessarily sympathize with the Predator, but rather it challenges the humanity in a way that I think is genuinely so unique to the Alien franchise, just because of Weyland-Yutani's synths and the humanity that inherently comes with that storyline and exploration. You're bringing together synths that want to be human, they want to have the sensitivity, and then you put it with a creature that is supposed to have no guilt, that is supposed to have no emotion. They are just supposed to hunt. And whether it's something that is a societal exploration, like it's the culture of predators to just kill and just hunt and prove their hunting skill, or it's the artificial minds of what synths are, this film, Badlands, really brings together those 2 elements in rather a way that's not just like Predator versus Alien. I think that's cool, and I think that's very interesting, but this brings it together on more a thematic exploration level, rather than just one creature versus other creature. I mentioned this in my Alien Earth mid-season review, but I love the Aliens franchise, and I've loved Predator this decade specifically, but I'm not super knowledgeable about all of the lore. Yet this film brought together the most interesting aspects of both franchises on a lore level. After seeing the Weyland-Yutani bot in the Predator Badlands trailer, I think me along with everyone else was really interested to see Dan Trachtenberg's take on merging the franchises. And I think not only does he execute on the merging of these franchises, which obviously we've seen together before, but never in this way. Because even on top of the emotional connection that we have between a synth and a literal predator, the action and just general pacing of Badlands evolves in a really slow but steady way. I think the film starts very slow. I don't think the first act of this movie is great. I also think the sets take a little bit of time to kind of come together in terms of the makeup is jarring. It's weird to see a protagonist predator character, and it does kind of feel like a classic Disney franchise movie in terms of you have a character that gets involved in a group of people, and maybe one of those people in that group is just a cute little animal that you can sell stuffed animals of. But at its core, like underneath the surface of all of this corporate bullshit that I feel like Dan Trachtenberg was kind of forced to put in the film at its heart is about having a soul. Whether you're a synth or you are like a creature that's born to hunt. The Trachtenberg trilogy, you know exactly what you're getting into. Prey has this. Killer of Killers has this that literally spans decades and time and centuries. And then you get to Predator Badlands, where you have the most unexpected duo. Two things that are not human connecting over the most human things possible. Again, I think it takes a little too much time to pick up, but I think it's trying to execute upon something so different in the lore that we've never seen before, especially with a character like Deck, a protagonistic Predator character, and then Thea, who's the synth character played by Elle Fanning. These are two just very different things we've never seen in the franchise, and so I like that we slowly build up to them. Again, it might be better on a rewatch for me, but I definitely think it dragged this time around. I kind of do wish that we spent a little less time on the trying to prove humanity, because we kind of know that's the point. But at the end of the day, I just like how these characters are bonded. And it feels like in the Alien and Predator franchises, we've never quite had something like this other than Alien Romulus, where we have the bond between Rain and Andy. I think that is the only thing that's rivaled it in terms of like the last couple decades of this franchise. We do know there's going to be a third Trachtenberg live action Alien movie. I don't know if we're going to get a direct sequel to Killer of Killers, but we also are getting a sequel to Alien Romulus with Fede Alvarez, of course. And I see online all the time people saying that Alien versus Predator is on the way. I don't think we really need that, but I really like that the franchises are successfully telling stories in unique ways, in a way that we've just never really seen from these different potential storylines. Obviously, at the end of Killer of Killers, we do see Naru from Prey appearing in the gladiatorial arena, since she survived a Predator attack. And so I think there could be a future story with her being told, maybe a live action sequel to Killer of Killers that also connects with Prey. But I also wouldn't mind a different director helming one storyline and then another helming either Naru or Deck's storyline, because I think these are two really important, like ethically speaking, perspectives that we can explore in terms of one being a predator and one being a survivor. It's just two really cool ways the franchise can kind of divert itself into, and I don't think we need to directly go into a Predator versus Alien, especially because we have such interesting singular characters within both franchises right now. I think Predator Badlands is one of the best franchise films of the year, and I think it really does take the Predator and Alien franchises in a really, really great direction. Overall, I'm going to give Predator Badlands an 8 out of 10. If you've seen or want to check out this movie, let me know you thought of it in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.